All right, so it's 1:03, so I'm going to go ahead and kick us off and get us started. So again, this is a fairly short training, shouldn't take too much of your time. I'm recording it, so if you need to go back and watch it, you can always do that. Oh, we should do introductions. My name is Lori Sabata. I am with the Kuhawai Central Office staff, and I've been working as a liaison to the programming committee all of my 11 years that I've been there, and so I really enjoy doing this. This is my favorite thing to do. And I'm joined by April Barnes, and I'll let you introduce yourself.
Thank you, Lori. She is fantastic. You are going to love working with her. If you are able to come out to the Akuhoi conference in Pittsburgh, you will have to stop by the programming room. We are typically there, and we would love to, it's just a really fun time. So I hope that you can make it out there. But thank you so much for being here today and for volunteering to be a program reviewer for us. I think it's a really fun task. Again, my name is April Barnes. I have the pleasure of serving as the Executive Director of University Housing at the University of South Carolina. So that is where I'm at. And I'm thrilled to be able to be the admin for the core team. It's kind of a track that you kind of get into and whatnot, but you'll get several emails from me around this time because I get to work with the different buckets and the program review piece of it. So.
Yep, thank you, April. And I have a screen up here. Are you seeing my screen? Hopefully you are. There's a screen up there. Okay, so and I'll show this again, but I'm going to drop my email in the chat so that anytime you have a question, you can contact either April or I at any time. And as April mentioned, she'll be sending out lots of emails, so you'll have our contact information, but I just want to make sure that you had that. And the purposes of today's training, well, first of all, let me see. I feel like I recognize some names. How many have done reviewing programs before? I know just about almost everybody. Okay, great. So there might be a couple things that are different, and I'm going to get into that on the next slide. It's generally the same, but this is the first time we've done a call for in-person ACE in a couple of years. So I want to preface this by saying that the purpose of this training is to show us how to review programs in the system, and most of you have done this before, so that part's going to work the same. And I want to talk a little bit about some of these deadlines. So you may or may not have seen that in connections yesterday, a message went out saying that we had extended our priority deadline for the call from December 3rd to December 17th. So that's the thing that happens. We have a little bit more time, and you'll notice that the timeline for round 1 and round 2 reviewing has shifted a bit here a little bit later to accommodate that. And I just want to say that there is so what typically would happen on the 17th is that the call for programs would close. We say we're done. I would spend a day or so, arranging everything in our system, which I'm going to show you a little bit. And then I would say, okay, or you would probably hear from April saying, everyone is ready, go ahead, log in, you can start reviewing programs. And we hope that that's the way that it's going to work out, that when we get to the 17th, that we have tons of programs and everything's great. There's a possibility, we've had a slow start, I'm going to say that, to getting in. We're not surprised by this. We anticipated that this would happen. I still think there's, a lot of things up in the air. People don't know if they can travel and things like that. And so if that happens, we may have to send programs over to you on a rolling basis, meaning that we don't close the call really on the 17th. And that means that I can't shift everything over to the system, and that we might have to do some spreadsheet work before we go and input everything into the system. Because the way our system works is you have to move everything, it's all or none. You get them, you move them over, and you can't have them trickle in. So it's like, so that may be how it has to work. So we don't know yet, but I just wanted to put that out there so you're aware that there could be a little shift in the process, a little bit of change, and we would definitely communicate that to you ahead of time if that's going to be the case. But I still think it's important for us to to go through and take a look at the system. It hasn't changed any from last year. And because eventually, even if we do shift to that sort of rolling spreadsheet type process, we'll still have to put everything into the system anyway at some point. So we'll keep you posted on that. So right now, the call for programs closes on Friday, December 17th. We may be reviewing programs on a rolling basis. As I had said, the first round of review process that you'd be participating in would take place December 20th through January 14th. Then the second round review process, which is handled by the review coordinators, would take place January 17th through the 28th. So were there any questions on that? Feel free to just unmute yourself if you want to ask a question, or you can use chat if you like. We'll have time at the end too. All right, so I'm going to move
We
into.
extended that a little bit because we know that break is in there and whatnot. So hopefully you'll have potentially a couple of days to kind of catch up and whatnot before. And then if you wanted to, it'll stay open over break. That's typically when I would do it. I would come in or carve out a morning or whatnot to look at them. But there's also time once we come back in January as well.
Yep. All right, so we're going to jump into the reviewing system, and now you're going to see all the ugliness of the back end of my system here. Before I say that too, I want to mention, and April reminded me of this earlier, you should have, hopefully you have this document. It might look different because I have this dark mode on, but this is the same document that you can follow along if you want. Again, a lot of you have done this before already, so you might not need to, but this is what I'm going to show you. All these things are sort of on this instruction sheet too, so you can refer to this, make notes on it, whatever you like to do, but I just wanted to mention that. If you don't have it, let us know and we can send it to you. All right, so I'm going to log in, and I use my Bruce Wayne person here. He's involved in lots of things, so we like to use him as our test account. So you won't have to do this. This is the back end of our system. I'm just going to log in, pretend that I'm him. Hopefully it'll do it. So what you would do is you will log into the Kuhuai website. You would do it through the portal, just like you would go to the Kuhuai website, log into your account, and then it would bring you to this page. And if you log in frequently, this should look somewhat familiar. So it's like, oh, okay, Bruce Wayne, I continue logging in. And then it brings you to your profile page, or it should. And when that happens, you'll want to go down to, so you have all kinds of things listed here. You'll want to go down to sort of the last section of that page under applications. As you can see here, Bruce Wayne, he's been doing a lot of stuff here. Oh, we have one more person. I'm going to let them in to our meeting here. Yep. Okay. And it's going to be under, so you're going to have a link that's going to say review entries for 2022 Conference and Expo call for abstracts. So you're going to click on that. Sometimes it takes a minute to pull up. And of course, this is a test abstract that I put in here. So there isn't going to be a lot of information for you to see when I pull this up because I just sort of threw it in here. But when you look at this page, so this is a bucket. So let's look at a couple things here. You're going to have a drop down here and it should say round 1 on it. You can toggle back and forth to round 2 and round 1, but it really should just say round 1 because we won't even have done round 2 yet. So that shouldn't even be on there. So it should say round 1 on it. You should see, this is the name of we call them buckets. They're topics, categories, buckets, but whatever you've been assigned to, whatever April assigned you to, you should see that listed up here. And then here you would see listed, you probably have a whole bunch of entries under here, not just one. For purposes of this, there's just one because it's test. And so it'll have an entry number. It would have under here, it would have the name of the abstract. And then when you want to view the entry, what I do is I just hold down my control key and I click it so that it opens in a new tab so I can keep going back and forth to this page. And you go to that tab and it will bring up, again, there isn't a lot to look at here because that's just a test entry. You would see the title listed here. There's also the the ID number here, you would see the description. Now, as a reviewer, you won't see, you will not see the presenter names or their institutions. So this is sort of
Blind process.
a blank process, yes. And so so because we don't, you know, at this point, we don't want to be factoring that into our decision making. We really want to look at the proposals just for what they are. And so you would go and you would, all that information would be listed here: knowledge domain, description, outline, target audience, learning objectives would all be listed here for you to read and review. So you would go through and you would look at all of that. And then when you're done reading all of that information, you would switch back to this page and you would submit your scores. And again, I'm going to hold down the control key, click the submit scores, and it opens up in a new tab. So you'll have these open so you can toggle back and forth. Okay, here's the one I was reviewing, and now I want to submit scores. Ideally, if you have two screens, this works best. So you would have the information that you want to review on one page and the score sheet open on the other page. And one thing you want to do is try to match up these ID numbers, because when that list, of course, it didn't look like it on that page. When you have a whole list of entries on there, it's really easy to open up one and open up the wrong score sheet of the other one. So what you would be doing is you would be entering the wrong scores. Very easy to do. So what I do, again, if you have two screens, is just do a quick check, make sure the IDs match. So there's an ID number on the score sheet, and there's one on the entry page too, and just make sure you have those lined up. And you would go through here and you would you know, read the criteria and you just put in your numbers. So I'm just going to do it. I think I can only do up to 4. Okay, and I'm just randomly putting them in. So you would do that, and it's up to you how you want to do this. Some people like to, maybe if you have a lot of them, read everything through first and then do the scoring. You can always go back and change, because sometimes after you get through the first 5 and you're giving everything really high scores, and then you see what the rest of them are like, you may want to go back and adjust your earlier scores. But anyway, you finish doing that. Here's where you're going to put in your comments. And these are super important for lots of reasons. One reason they're important is because it really helps when you get to round 2, when the review coordinators are reading what you had to say, like, why did you score it the way that you did? The other thing that's important to know about the comments is that the people who submitted the proposal will read these comments. So you want to use constructive language. I mean, I really don't think anyone would say something like, this is the worst thing I've ever read, but every now and then I've read a few things that, you know, maybe aren't as constructive as they could be. So all I'm saying is just keep that in mind, that these will be read by, you know, the person that submitted, and you want what you're saying to be as constructive and helpful as possible. It's really helpful too when, you know, occasionally, sometimes someone will submit a proposal and they are really surprised that it didn't get accepted. And so we definitely go back and we read these comments. And oftentimes we'll find that across the board, everyone who reviewed it kind of said the same thing. And so that really helps us sort of stage that conversation with the person who submitted it. And so you would submit your comments and you would then submit your scores. And then it's done, and you would go on, you would go back to your entry page here. Oh, that's not it. You would go back to your entry page here, and you would have your list on here, and you would just wash, rinse, repeat. And that is basically it. I told you it would be fascinating. I make a big deal out of, really what you're doing is you're logging in, you click on your link, you find your list, you open it, read it, score it.
Yeah.
And the hard part is actually doing it, because if you have a lot of entries, that can take a lot of time. Are there any questions on that? Anything you want me to go back and?
Or any hints that you all have had as you've reviewed? I love the opening up multiple tabs. It helps me keep things straight. The first year I didn't do that. It took me a long time. I was toggling back and forth like it was crazy. So I think that that's pretty awesome. And then I really do, sometimes I'll read them all first and then kind of go back into score them, just so that I kind of know what I'm looking at. I've gotten halfway through and then found like a really good one and then been like, oh, this is what I should have been kind of scoring. Like this is where, and then had to go back and kind of adjust all the other scores. So I think that that is something I've learned to do a little bit, or at least kind of skim them type thing. Also make sure that you are reading the email from your review coordinator. Sometimes they'll get put into a bucket that has a lot of entries in them, and they'll divide everyone within the bucket up. So some people start at the top and some people start at the bottom. And so make sure that you are kind of reading that, so that one year I, as a program reviewer, I only did like a middle chunk. And I had started in the wrong place and then kind of reread it and was like, oh, snap. So kind of just make sure that you're kind of paying attention to that. They sometimes get broken up if the bucket is really large.
Yep. Okay, I'm going to go through a couple of these key points. One of them is, so I mentioned in the beginning, you're going to be logging in to the website. So maybe make sure, if you haven't logged in a while or it's not something you do a lot, try logging in and make sure that you can do it. Make sure if you need to reset your password, and just make sure your contact information is all up to date too, because if you're using a Gmail or something to log in and your profile uses your email from your institution, you won't be able to log in. So we'll need to update all that and make sure that's right. I just don't want to see anyone stuck on December 20th or, towards the end of the cycle, and then you can't log in. So I don't want to see that happen. And, so now, if you get a chance, now's a good time to go in and make sure everything's updated. I mentioned earlier just that little, trick of making sure the IDs match on the 2 pages so that you're not entering scores for for a different, what you didn't think you were reviewing, a different program. So make sure that those IDs match. They're really easy to mix up when you have a long list. We mentioned that the review process is masked, so you won't see any names or schools, or you shouldn't. So occasionally they sort of sneak through. Sometimes in the description, someone will say, either who they are or where they're from, or they will mention other people. There isn't a whole bunch we can do about that. We do the best that we can. But certainly if you're looking and you're seeing those fields all filled in, it's like, this doesn't look masked, let us know, and we'll fix that. And sort of related to that, if you do come across your own proposal, don't review it, just let us know and we'll move it to a different bucket or we'll figure something out. It happens all the time, not a big deal.
Yeah.
It's definitely okay to go back and edit any scores and comments that you made, as April and I both talked about. Using 2 monitors is great if you have them. If you don't, there's a way to sort of shrink the screens down to have them both on side by side, but in that case, you might want to think about scoring on a separate sheet and then going in and just data entering the scores later. And then, as we said, the comments are important for lots of reasons, and remembering that they'll be read by the submitter. So always have that lens on when you're making those comments. And that's really all I have. I told you it would be quick, and it was.
If there's anything that you run across that you're like, oh, hey, this might make a good pre-conference, or if you just have any kind of ideas as you're running through those, don't necessarily put those in the comments, but contact your coordinator about that. We're always looking for ideas, and we then from this go back and slate all the programs. And so if they could kind of be combined or different things like that. The coordinators are looking at that anyway, but if you have some ideas, I'm sure that they would love to hear those too.
Mm-hmm. Yep, or even things that you think, any kind of thoughts like, wow, this program really, says that it was targeted towards, senior level leadership, but really seems like it would be more, for a different audience. We like to hear things like that too.
Absolutely. Yes.
Definitely, feel free to flag things like that. So we really read those comments. And that's all I have. So I am grateful again. I know April said it before. I'm going to say it again, for your, assistance with this. We know it's kind of it's a heavy lift around a sort of a difficult time with the holidays and things like that too, but it's such important work, and it's really gratifying, I think, then to know that you participated in, putting together a really great slate of programs. So it's extremely meaningful work. So we do appreciate it.
We couldn't do it without you. So
No, we couldn't.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. So
All right.
if no one has any questions, again, you have our emails. Again, you'll be hearing lots more from us as we draw closer to the deadline time, and we'll be talking a lot.
All right.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Appreciate it. And we're going to post a recording too. So, all right. Bye.
Thanks, Lori.
Thank you.
Bye.